All right, welcome and thank you everyone for joining us for another Twitter Space. Today is August 16th, 2022, and this is episode 27 of the ledgerscale Internet of Value Open Forum. Now, ledgerscale Foundation was founded with two goals in mind. One, we want to provide educational services to not only our community, but to the entire digital asset community, and to help scale up the number of brains that understand how distributed ledger technology works. And two, we intend to one day run hardware to provide infrastructural support to the distributed ledger technology networks that we believe are ESG friendly and running a form of decentralized consensus. Now, we host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And on Wednesday, we host a focus topic space from 5 to 6. And if I could just ask if everyone could follow us on Twitter at ledgerscale and turn notifications on so you know we're going live, as well as that little bubble at the bottom right. If you could retweet the space so that hopefully other people in the future can find this information valuable, and give a little heart, because I think Twitter likes that for the algorithm.
And the whole purpose here is to engage with the community, and so please, if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand. I'm sure if you're curious about something, other people are as well. And it's an open forum. If you do speak up, please be cordial and welcome to the space. And I'm gonna drop off real quick and try and pop back on with the other thing. The app's giving me some trouble, but I'll be right back.
Well, that was interesting. I'm glad you're there, though. I'm just inviting everybody up. If you can't speak, or if you just want to become a listener, feel free to stay down. And if there's anybody who has any questions or topics they'd like to bring up today, feel free to come up. What's going on, Vet? Tony? OC?
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, how you guys doing?
What's going on, everyone? What's up, Vet? Tony? Doctor?
OC.
Hey man.
Vet.
I do have a question. Sort of want to wait for Kamala to be up here since he has a bit more of a finance background. But yeah, somebody else wants to ask a question.
You can ask if you want, and then re-ask when he comes back if you want.
There he is.
Yeah. So I guess my background's a little bit. I work in IT, and obviously do some audio engineering. I'm a network engineer, so this is more on projects that are creating DAOs for their NFT projects. I guess my question is, what is a DAO? If you guys can break it down, and how does that legally work for a project to do that? What are like the steps that they need to do in order to legally do that, and to really, I guess, whoever's holding their NFTs, have some form of security?
Well, the only legal DAO, right, or the only way to have I would say, a legal DAO right now is to go to this.
If you can break down what a DAO is first for me, please, and then.
Sure, yeah. So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, and so what that really means is, right, is you have a distributed system that is able to work autonomously, and so it is extremely. I would say there's really no actual full DAO that I've seen. We have aspects of things like DAOs, even in the financial system today before blockchain, right? There's like aspects of like what a DAO is, right? This centralized system that kind of works like autonomously, almost like our government, right? In a political setting, right? You could think of it like that. And so, to be able to build this, the question really always comes down to me is why, and then the aspect of, is it just a contract on a network, right, that is distributing tokens that have to, that interacts with just that contract, or are you building an entire network that you're trying to create and be a DAO? Because I think they're the two different aspects of them are like, there's a tremendous amount of work, right, difference between the two. And the only place I would say that you could actually be a legal DAO right now, right, would be in the state of Wyoming, which has allowed people to register a DAO as a company, an LLC, as long as it's backed by another LLC. So there's somebody to speak to, or if something goes bad, right? If they're scammed, something like that, they're legitimized because they're an actual company. Um, I think that's pretty cool. I think that's one step in that direction. Um, but yeah, it's definitely not easy.
I've seen some projects do this, like with with DAOs, like because you asked for NFTs. I think I've seen some. I think also I forget the name, but I'll make sure to send you. There's a very known one also, and I mean Ethereum is full of it, right?
Yeah, but like I wouldn't call any of those really DAOs, right? They're not really even decentralized for the most part ever.
I mean, they cannot be. Right? Because I mean, at some point there. For example, I bring this always up. It's how it's set up is a DAO. Like for example, with Lofty, they do like the tokenized property thing, and is a DAO, right? How they set it up, governance stuff, and it's also part of a DAO. How the governance mechanisms. But essentially, it's an LLC, right? It's essentially an LLC, and every DAO member is basically shareholder of that LLC. So usually those DAOs, if they get formed, like LLC, as I said, members need to be KYC and all that stuff. So you cannot be like anonymous and create a DAO and act under that DAO legally for whatever,
I guess that's my concern, because a lot of these projects are saying they're creating DAOs, and as soon as I hear that, okay, well, that just brings up a whole other monster to me. And it's funny that you say that you have to KYC in order to sort of create a DAO, because some of these projects that are creating DAOs, the founders and the members of those teams are not actually KYC'd or DAOs. So thank you for that.
Well, when you set up like an LLC, I mean, you have to give the state your information, your address, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And see,
but what was the purpose of the debt? What are these people? What are they working on? What are they trying to accomplish? Just create NFTs or something?
It's this community thing. I think a lot of it is like the people create something and they don't want the hype to die, in a sense, almost, right? And so you want to create a whole system behind it. And so that's, I think, because of the overall like inherent hype behind the word DAO and what it is. I think that's just like an avenue a lot of people steer towards, because it's just like people hear it. And
well, then that's just like a marketing thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Whole spaces, I think.
I mean, how it's mostly done is like you can do it right in that sense, but it's just basically like so often in crypto, like stuff that is already existing in the real world, just they label this as with a new buzzword, right? Online games are now meta. What is it? The meta
metaverse, yeah.
Metaverse, yeah. And DAOs, no, LLCs are now DAOs. So it's as usual. But the thing is, it's about shared ownership, and I think it's a cool idea. But people have a wrong perception, I think, of this. Some people.
I sort of think of actually karma coverage as a bit of a DAO, because once the code's there, the network itself can be run by a bunch of different, distributed whatever, and each individual, user is self-custody. They decide what they want to do with their money, right? It's not like the karma coverage methods. For an insurance company will forcefully take whatever you paid in as premium and give it to this guy or whatever happened by contract. There's no contract and anything. So like it's really just a bunch of people doing. I mean, it's not a fully like automated system where the code's really not gonna decide anything. It's the users that decide. Like you would decide what you do with your money, and that's that. Like the system is there to help coordinate the users so that they can help each other. But
Wasn't it that like the token itself or coin, so to speak, that the community will own, that they use that to vote on proposals and influence how the organization operates in that sense? Or do I have it wrong?
Yeah, and so here would be my next question. Is that autonomous? Right? Like decentralized autonomous organization. Is that autonomous? No. Like I don't that's why I say like I think like one DAO truly exists today as like people hype word, because it's like, until AI is able to we have AGI that's able to make its own decisions and it's running an organization. Maybe then we say we have a DAO distributed.
Does this also tie in with like the SEC lawsuit versus Dragon Chain? I don't know if you guys heard about that today.
No, I haven't seen. Go ahead.
Oh, look it up, because
Yeah, they're getting sued for an ICO.
Yeah, basically. But there's also like the DAO element, and that they think that they overstepped their boundary in it.
Yeah, and like here's a question, right? How did they distribute the tokens that made the decisions in the network? Like, did they, and in most cases, what I see is like they distribute like something like 35% of the supply, and they keep the rest, and then they just dump and they sell them themselves. And so, I wouldn't call that decentralized. So it's really, I guess, it's like a.
Well, they had it says so. The SEC alleges that in 2017, the foundation, which was Dragon Chain, conducted an unregistered offering of Dragon tokens, and so they did it. They're accusing them of doing it in two phases. One was a discounted pre-sale in August of 2017 to members of a crypto investment club, and two, an initial coin offering in October and November of 2017, marketed predominantly to crypto investors. And then it was a total of, I think, like $16 million, something like it was something minuscule.
Dude, the XRPL right now is full of that. I know.
Right? So
I'm telling you,
where would that leave? Yeah.
It doesn't happen right away. It takes 3 to 5 years, right?
It takes 3 to 5, yeah, apparently. I mean, they go.
But here's the thing: if you want to fund a new blockchain through external funding, you're either gonna get an ICO or a VC, or maybe do it in like through tax deductible means when you're a charity, so to speak, kind of thing. But
well, it says
what other flavors do you have?
So it says here through the offering, the defendants allegedly raised approximately $14 million from approximately 5,000 investors around the world, including the United States.
Right.
14 million.
Yeah.
But they have like a market cap of 8 million right now, isn't it? I mean, it's such a small type of lawsuit that I think they only do it to set a precedent. I've been reading up on it.
Yeah.
Well,
look at the library case. Look at the library case. They raised like 200 grand.
Right.
I mean, like
in this
that's
space,
still a lot of money, like to an individual. But in the grands, and like in terms of doing business, 200 grand's not going to get you very far.
No, man, no.
Yes,
no, it was 14 million. It was 14 million in one phase, and then $2.5 million in another phase. It says the 2.5 million of Dragon coins were to cover business expenditures to further develop and market Dragon coin technology, some of which occurred after a state regulator found Dragon coins to be securities.
What's with this name also, Dragon?
That's the 2017 vibes.
Oh, the jokes could just start from right there, right, Dad?
So it's funny that you're talking about the name. I joined one of David's spaces. Oh, go ahead, Karma.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, like, $14 million, like, okay, you can get something done with that, right? Like you can put a team together, You can get equipment. You can resource the team. This is more reasonable. But with the library case, 200 grand, you're going to burn through that in less than a year. It's not half a year.
Easily. Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
No, go for it. Sorry. That was my only point. It's like with the library case, like they did 200 something grand. And I mean, like.
Exactly. So in my humble opinion, they wouldn't do this if it's just for shits and giggles, right? They're far too busy to just pick a nonsense fight. I mean, there's so many projects out there that they could sue if they would want to, but they seem to pick these. And if I lay it from like a tactical point of view from the SEC, it's like they do that with an idea in mind. Like there is some things in these court cases, I believe, that sets a precedent for the market. So I've yet to dig up a little bit more, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like library, it's a very important case.
Most of their cases come from people reporting somebody. So somebody could have not liked the people behind the Dragon Chain, and they could have reported them and said this, and that's usually typically what tips off an investigation for them. And so they want to set precedent, right? And so they're looking for this stuff, and they'll pay people. As Gary always likes to brag on his videos, right? They've paid out like over $1 billion to informants, as they call them, or whistleblowers.
Well, I wonder, whoever was just making that comment, I've wondered if, because I don't take these SEC people for being stupid. So I wonder if they really have like a strategy around, let's do this case and set this precedent, right? And then we'll use that precedent to do this case and make another precedent.
They do. There's an interview on Apple TV that he has with Jon Stewart. It's 25-minute long. And Jon Stewart is going at it at Gary Gensler from the perspective of GameStop. And then he goes into the fact that the world is like, the system is corrupt. What do you think of that, Gary? And Gary has to really choose his words because he was really pushing the questions like John has a tendency to do. Great guy, in my opinion. And then he actually answers this conundrum that we now have, like what's the deal with that? And he actually spells it out and says, yeah, we really have to pick our battles. We don't have enough funding to sue everyone or be in constant legal battles. So from that perspective, if I lay that upon the entire crypto sphere, they would want to regulate the entire sphere with all these court cases. So there must be a nugget of truth from the informant, but there must also be a nugget of truth that sets a precedent for the entire market. That's the aspect that I'm interested in. Care about Dragon Chain.
So it seems like what you're saying is that they're nitpicking which companies to go after, and then each one is going to set a precedent for a huge group of other projects at the same time.
Yeah, it's
right?
the same with the SEC versus Wahi. Like it's like those three people had insider trading, and everyone's like, yeah, that's wrong. But if you delve deeper, then all the ERC20s are really elaborately listed with their business models, which almost covers all ERC20 business models. LCX is the only MiCA regulated exchange. There's just I might be seeing things or connecting things which might not be there, but it's like too obvious not to with the way that it's being written down. Like they wouldn't have to write down the entire aspect and detail of every ERC20 business case. I mean, if they just went for Ethereum and said that's a centralized network and a security, then that would cover ERC20 as well. That would be sufficient. Instead, they did it for every single token. To me, that's pretty remarkable.
I don't even know.
They're using certain laws, or I guess sections of some code, the Securities Acts code, as to why they're suing them. It says the SEC's complaint filed in the U.S. District Court of Western District of Washington charges the defendants with violating sections 5A, C, and Security Acts of 1933. The SEC seeks permanent injunctions, disgorgement, and prejudgment interest, civil penalties against the conduct-based, injunctions against each defendant. They're using archaic laws for this.
Does anybody know if library is its own network or is it like an ERC-20?
That's a good question.
I mean, I'm not really sure.
Blind Dave, do you know the answer to that question on library?
I'm looking it up right now. It's ERC-20.
So it's built on top of Ethereum.
Yes.
That's interesting. I, for some reason, had the impression it was its own network. I guess that's wrong. Huh. So if they go after because you could like go up if they can get a case or set precedence on an ERC-20, I would think they'd probably do that on a couple and then go up the chain to the actual Ethereum. Almost like if you're prosecuting like a RICO case or something, and you start
It's
off
actually
with guys and you work up to the boss.
Yeah, library is actually scheduled for trial next month. And apparently it has similar touch points to the ongoing Ripple SEC lawsuit. So it might be interesting to also see perhaps the lawsuit versus Wahi and the lawsuit now versus Dragon Chain in that light, because it might set an extra precedent.
See, I think that would be different though, because like if I was gonna say, okay, like if I was like Ripple, and you came to me and said, hey, we're going to use precedent set in a case regarding an ERC-20 token. The first thing I'm going to point out is, well, we're a network. We're not a token. We're a network.
Well, maybe the SEC doesn't want to win against Ripple. Maybe they just want to steer the ship in the right direction.
In the court,
I think, but if you did like an issued asset, like let's say, okay, I have no code, right? I've got it worked out, but there's nothing built for karma coverage. If I went out onto the XRP ledger and started issuing karma tokens, I could see that being a parallel to a library issuing ERC-20 tokens. But I don't think that you can make a parallel between an ERC-20 token and like Ethereum, like ETH. Like ETH is different than an ERC-20. Like ETH is part of it's the network. It's a different animal.
I don't think it matters, especially in law, right? The only thing that really matters is why are they there, right? And they're there because the SEC is saying that they sold something and promised some future profits from it. And so, as long as those
I actually think it
That's
matters for business, because you want to be compliant, right? You don't want the hassle of different networks in your business. You want to be compliant everywhere.
It matters from us, from our standpoint, but from them, right? From a hammer, right? Everything just looks like a nail, right? You can't tell the difference. You're just hitting nails in, and so they're setting precedent every single nail they do, and they give themselves little defenses here and there, right? So they can in any sort of future lawsuit, right, against companies and projects, have all of these different things that they could use to their advantage if they want. It's regulation through enforcement.
Yeah, it looks like that.
This time period will pass, and this industry will move on, and this will all become a distant memory. Like at some point, they're gonna. I think I'm surprised it's taken this long, but maybe after whatever the new Congress next year gets into, office and figures out whatever they're doing, maybe we'll get some laws. Like, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they'll wait another 10 years. I mean, that would certainly screw America.
I think what's more ridiculous also is the fact that they're using a law from 1933 on something that is of this age.
Well, maybe
No,
maybe
they were
1933.
but they already knew about distributed ledgers and the internet and everything back then, so it's all good. They had
Oh,
it.
okay, cool.
They had it
I just
covered.
want to make sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, it is time that the U.S. updates its legislation. They can't run behind that fast, and 10 years in this space, that's like a century. You just missed the boat if you don't do that. So I think
That's part of why I don't. It's if they go past next year, by they I mean Congress. If they go past next year without making laws, I mean, hey, look, we screwed the pooch on the drones. You know, the FAA wouldn't make rules, wouldn't make rules, wouldn't make rules, wouldn't make, and then so what happened is all the companies went to Europe, and now if you look at most of the big drone companies, they're European companies. Same thing can happen here with
oh
crypto.
really?
Yeah, yeah. The FAA.
But if I think if the U.S. misses the boat on crypto, that would be such a stupid
Well, it's because
such a stupid move.
well, the financial sector is like really, quite honestly, the backbone of the country. I mean, I know we do lots of other business and lots of other things, you know, farm and tech and build stuff and all kinds of things, real estate. But yeah, I mean, finance is the backbone of the country. Like
Yep.
in terms of like prowess in the world, like that's America, right? Like the dollar.
Right, but like you had, I thought it was under Clinton, right? One of the future backbones of the country also had to become software development because of the whole Silicon Valley boom. So they
Yeah,
spent a lot of investment in that part, and a lot of Silicon Valley companies bought up very good European tech companies. They were all they're all being cut off, even if they grow a little, they get bought up. Nothing grows here from a software perspective in Europe. Like everything
well,
is just being bought.
I think you're right, but I think that was 96 or somewhere around there, and they made actual laws, you know, like we're talking about for crypto, but they made laws for the internet because it back then it was more around media and like, you know, instead of the big banks pushing back against this newfangled internet, which was basically just peer-to-peer information. So again, same pattern. Um, then they made laws, and the big media companies back then would have been equivalent to the big banks in crypto, right? They were the incumbents. They didn't like that you could stand up and blog as, you know, a regular guy that wasn't a big media company
Right.
and publish it. Like that was a threat.
Right, but
And
I can't imagine the US missing the boat on blockchain. Because if
I can.
China and Russia doesn't really want blockchain and the US doesn't want blockchain, then it's very obvious that that at least it's going to go to Europe, probably Africa as well and South America. But Europe is very big on blockchain right now.
Well,
and on
there was
distributed ledgers.
some of the Scandinavian countries. I forget which one it was.
Probably Sweden.
They wanted to be, and they started advertising themselves, and they made laws and everything, and they were like, we want to be the Silicon Valley of blockchain.
Yeah, actually, that was Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, and that's actually going to move for the technical part in relation to medicals. That's actually moving to Amsterdam for the past few years now.
No, well, I mean, I think that's a better approach.
Yeah, Amsterdam. It's called Tech Leap, LEAP. It's humongous, really humongous, and it's predominantly going to use the technology advantage into advancing all the medical hardware. So the Netherlands in Amsterdam is going full on medical equipment. Cures for cancer, going at the molecular level, that sort of stuff.
But why would? How are they using blockchain with regarding the medical equipment?
That's a
What's
good question, because the Netherlands is also doing the prototype for digital identity. I don't know. The Sweden is very much at the forefront for hardware when it comes to um, um, a how do you say that? Like Shellfish actually found another thing with like where they are going with chips inside of your hand, for example, to scan things, to have your code in installed, to have skin-to-skin interfaces, stuff like that. And the thing is that the Netherlands and Sweden are like the countries which already have like a 99.9 cashless society. I mean, everything is already digitalized.
do I
So
like shake hands with someone and that like makes a payment? That sounds crazy.
no, there's actually a video online. You can see that many conspiracy theorists were ranting about it because to them it was like the second coming of 1984. That you put your hand, for example, with your digital identities on a chip. The chip is actually operated inside your hand, between your thumb and your what is it called, index finger, I guess. And you go to a door and you get access, or you don't. And you it's pretty far-fetched, right? So, for example, you stand in front of a supermarket and the supermarket doesn't open for you, for example, because you have lousy credit, or you wanna get an item from the register and they say, yeah, you had your quota of soda, you can only buy healthy water, for example. Shit like that is actually already in videos where they are making prototypes for that.
I don't know. That sounds a little crazy to me, but I guess it's
It,
theoretically
it,
doable.
it is crazy.
Places like Sweden, you could already get RFIDs and things like that installed in your hand, and you can go shopping, and yeah, you never have to really interact with anybody.
Yeah, I wasn't really focusing on the hardware part a lot, but more like the application for it. But um, it's it's more like if they want to create the Silicon Valley. One of the things that it really ties the blockchain, because you asked for a comparison or an overlap of the two. One of the main and biggest things that I can think of from an overlap perspective is the fact that it's the chips that are used for mining. They come from predominantly from ASML, which is a Dutch company, and they actually are part of Brainport, which is a cluster of companies in the region. And one of the other companies in the region is Philips, which has moved their position from audio video to medical equipment a few years ago. I believe it was also 10 or 20 years ago that they already repositioned themselves in the market. And they will have first dibs on chips that come out, not necessarily on mining equipment or stuff like that. Now, I don't know if we're gonna see a different revolution when there's quantum computing, because that could throw everything out of the window, I guess. But that is where the biggest connection is.
I think we're very close to quantum computing. I think more closer than most people think.
I agree.
Well, we're not gonna know about it in the general public.
Yeah, I agree. I also agree.
And I also think if there's one country that probably has quantum computing, it's probably the US.
I would
I
also.
mean, this is why I don't think we should lose the advantage that we have in the financial world. I mean, there's some advantages that the U.S. has built up. It just seems crazy to me to sit there and bicker, and it's like, imagine you're out like hunting, and there's a deer there, and you've got a good shot, right? And you and your buddy are sitting there in the stand bickering. Well, you just missed your opportunity, idiots. Like, why you stop arguing? I'm talking about the political part. All they do is fuss, and like, just do something. Take the shot, move on. Like, take the opportunity by the like, or you can just sit there and argue with each other and accomplish nothing. It just seems just absolutely asinine. It's crazy. And it's such, the financial sector is such a huge part of the strength of the U.S. I mean, it's the New York City is the money center of the world. I mean, there's other, secondary money centers, London, Singapore, etc. But it's dumbfounding. So I can't. It would be, if we don't get law. I can see politicians from their point of view, right? They want to wait because there's an election coming up in a few months, and they want to wait and see how things come out, and they're not gonna rattle the cart until they know what, who's got what, whatever. Then they'll go back to bickering with each other, and hopefully figure something out. I mean,
Don't forget also, from a European perspective, like from European Union perspective, so to speak, we don't care anymore about London. I mean, it's still very relevant and it's still a very huge financial sector, but most, if not eventually all, finances related to the European Union won't go through London anymore. They had the Brexit. It's gone.
well, I think this is just my opinion, and I really don't know that much about it, but I think that England kind of screwed up with the whole Brexit thing.
Yeah, no, they did. They really fucked themselves pretty hard, and it became more concealed due to Corona and COVID because everyone had a recession. But they are, if you just Google how much money they've been throwing away just from normal economic growth, and the entire thing is just retarded what they did. I mean, they were.
We talk about the internet of value, right? And you want to be connected. Well, why would you go about disconnecting yourself?
Well, exactly, and it's also with your neighbors, with a full cultural history behind it, with a full financial history and trade history behind it. It's like they throw 3,000 years of connections out of the window again, and it's very weird. And it's also the reason why a lot of the institutions and of the finance money from the EU has yet to make an impact on London. It is already doing that now because the world is a little bit more restored towards post-COVID economy. But you can see Frankfurt am Main, Amsterdam, and Paris just growing. It's like the Netherlands, France, and Germany are really basically sucking up everything that there is to get. And those are becoming huge financial centers. And actually, many people, British people, are now becoming expats in Amsterdam, Frankfurt, and Paris, and it's just.
Well, I know somebody said a few minutes ago that the U.S. that we couldn't screw this up, right? But case in point, look at Brexit in London, in England. I mean,
do you know the biggest? Do you know the biggest screw up? The biggest screw up in England.
The U.S. The idea the U.S. can't screw up this fintech legal stuff and regulatory is. I think there's a card in the deck that says, yeah, we can screw this up.
You know the biggest thing that most Dutch people were like confused about, like, yeah, they're not going to go through with this. They can't because, it's so obvious. Is the fact that they don't have ports deep enough for the heaviest ships to allocate every single good in their country. Till this day, they don't.
Oh, really?
They really. Everything goes to Rotterdam. In Rotterdam, it actually goes through customs. We did that for all the Brits, and then it goes to smaller ships, and it goes to England. So Rotterdam actually finished everything. Like, dudes, for the Brexit, they calculated everything for every good and every law, and they were like, yeah, dudes, this is not going to work. This is like, what do you want to do? You want to pay us to do it for you? or are you going to do it yourself? And obviously, in the negotiations, they said, yeah, no, we're going to do it ourselves. So they don't have enough customs agents. So everything is just being dumped in England as well right now. They have so much problems with, with illegal shit going into the country or quotas not being met. The administration around it has made sure that all moms and pop shops in England are gone because only big conglomerates could have dealt with the legal issues and the small entrepreneurs couldn't. So all those enterprises and entrepreneurships are gone. It's just mind blowing what they did to the economy. It's completely nuts.
Yeah, I think as a general rule, you want to make connections, not break connections. You know, like you don't burn bridges, right? Like, just not like on a personal level. Like, I don't know if you know the saying, "Don't burn a bridge," but like, even if someone pissed you off, just don't burn a bridge. Don't lash out. Just chill, right? Like, handle the situation. Let the person be the person. I think the whole Brexit thing was like basically England burning a bridge. I just, it's weird. They got themselves in a hot-headed sort of mentality, if from at least like from the media and stuff that I see in America.
Yeah,
And I
the
didn't really
thing
follow
is the thing what happened is that Cambridge Analytica actually played a large part in it. So Mark Zuckerberg is very much responsible for a large part of it.
Well, that's where I say I think they
Which
got
which was one of the reasons, the incentives that Europe said, yeah, we're going to own Web3. We're not, no, Google's not going to say shit in our continent. Facebook is not going to say shit in our continent. That's why they get such a high fees, and that's why it went ballistic on Web3.
And I just wanted to read. Cash had a comment down in the audience. He said, "No matter how old the law is, if you rewrite it today, you'd still put rules on any platform, asset, etc., that relies on the efforts of others. There seems to be a subtle tones that people want to rely on those efforts because they believe that they are betting on will win."
Wait, say that. I'm not sure. Say that again. Something about efforts. It was the last part of that.
You can see the comment if you click on the bubble at the bottom right. It's a comment he wrote in the chat.
Okay, hang on.
So he's saying like the law would have to just be updated, but it would still apply, even the law as old as 1933, the one we were talking about earlier.
I think the law needs to be definitely updated. A lot of updates, a lot of amendments.
So of course, yeah.
Go ahead, Digital Sniper. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on whoever said that thing about Brexit. I 100% agree. Watching it from, I'm in Norway in Northern Europe. We are very close actually to England and the British Empire. If you think there's only sea between us. So we are extremely influenced by their culture. We have very strong ties through the different wars and so on. So in many ways, and I think there's actually more people cheering for Premier League teams than there are for local football teams, to put it that way. But that's another part of the story. I think to be honest with you, and I'm not going to offend anyone on the call because you can have whatever political opinion you have, but I think that Trump was a catastrophe. It could be a catastrophe. I completely understand why he got his votes. Definitely. I think there was something very, very wrong with the American system. But I also think that Boris Johnson rose to the kind of top in England of many of the same reasons. And we can discuss the underlying reasons why the symptoms of Boris Johnson or Donald Trump kind of emerge. But what I think is, or my point is to the person that spoke about Brexit, was that it seemed to me also like a very, very after party-ish type of a decision that like fuck everyone else, like we're going national and like we are Britain and blah blah blah, like so little thought through. I mean, like they before the U.S. dollar, like we know the reserve currency, we can have all that debate, but like they don't have. It seems like the political landscape in the UK at this point does not have a clue about what they actually have, kind of what influence they've played on the world in general. Like look pre First World War, like they had the British Empire was. I'm not sure if it was larger than the Roman
They threw
Empire.
all that away. They threw all of that away.
Exactly,
And
right?
it's just mind-boggling, because
Yeah.
I'm from the Netherlands, you're from Norway, so everything you say rings true for us as well.
Yeah, I think
But
so too, because I've been working with a lot of people from the Amsterdam and Rotterdam and so on, and even though we are maybe like up here in north, we are looked upon as like this, whatever country. Like people when I used to live
whatever
in
country, I like Norwegian people, but go
yeah,
ahead.
I
Yeah.
like I like that you say that. But when I lived in San Francisco for a long time. For example, I lived in San Jose. I lived in different parts of the U.S. I also lived in New York. I lived in Boston. Blah blah blah. Like many people thought that Norway was the capital of Sweden, which in my opinion was just hilarious, right? It was just hilarious, right? Because we didn't make as much ourselves. We didn't create the Irish bars and so on. There was more immigrants from Norway coming to America during the great kind of immigration period than there were Irish people. But we never planted our seeds there, or our flag there. We went to Minnesota and created all these crazy like Quaker movements and stuff like that, and it kind of ruined the whole thing. But that's just another story. Like what I'm trying to say here is that if you look at the history of the Netherlands, right, a small freaking country built on poles in a fucking sump in the middle of Norway, no, sorry, in the middle of Europe, basically being the economic center of the world on the 15th and the 16th, and maybe even into the 17th century. With I'm not sure if Vasco da Gama went from there, but like Amsterdam, like you have to remember that New York was called New Amsterdam when it was first established. When they
We
bought the
lost it.
land.
We lost it. We lost it all as well.
I know.
So
But
so
I'm
so
trying to
I
say
know empires come and go.
exactly they come and go, but there's ways that they come and go, and the whole thing. And I'm not going to go around myself with the petrodollar and with the geopolitical aspects of XRP and blah blah blah. But what I'm trying to say here is that it's so easy to rest on your laurels. It's so easy to kind of feel that I've done it, or my country has done it, or we have the biggest military force, or we have the best morals, or we have invented capitalism in the U.S. Like, it's like saying to me that Jesus invented moral. Like, F you, man. I mean, Socrates was talking about morals and ethics 2,500 years before Jesus Christ. So like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I'm just trying to get back to the whole Brexit thing. Like, is that what's happening now in the US a little bit? Like, is the nationalism taking such a stronghold that they are afraid of not being nationalists? Because if they are going to deal with the triple dilemma, being a world reserve currency, as well as having their domestic kind of economy going without the crazy inflation rates that what they are
Well,
looking at right now, what
I'm
are they going to do? Like, what would you do if you were in the seat? Like, what the
I'm
America
fuck?
glad
first,
you.
right? That was the answer. America first. Burn bridges.
Well, I
Yeah, but
went from Amsterdam to the
that's not
British.
an answer.
Sure.
Like, oh, yeah, it's an answer, but it's a freaking crazy answer, right?
But it's also very black white, and we are outsiders looking in. There's many people from
Yeah,
the
but I'm
U.S.
asking
here,
you.
and
You're
it's much
intelligent
more
people.
nuanced.
What would you do if like? Can I
No,
just ask you that question? Like,
I promise
what
you,
would you do?
there's definitely this got crazy. When I was working at this place down the road, this lady I worked with, she was into the QAnon, and some of the stuff she told me, and she was
Yeah,
dead.
that's just insane,
Oh
man.
no, she was dead serious though. She was
Okay.
dead serious, and I was, sometimes I would just look. I didn't even know what to say. I was like, well,
We probably have people on the call, man. Sorry, Karma, but we probably do, and there is a lot of people of those in the community of XRP. For some weird reason, where you have a company established in San Francisco, the most liberal part of the country, and all of the people that work for Ripple, I can guarantee you, are Democrats. Almost every single freaking one of them. So
I don't
it's strange to me.
I
But
care
that's
about
another
the
thing.
market.
I don't care either. I'm just saying. It doesn't correlate to me. But does okay? Continue. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. I think that's as crazy. I mean, sure, everybody in here remembers the 589 stuff.
What is
I
the
mean,
589
Sure. It's a
in
COMEX
a
for
few
gold.
bullet points?
COMEX for gold, isn't it?
well, I mean, I thought that was just as stupid. Like,
I thought that
you
was
know,
a COMEX code for gold.
I don't know. It was somebody drummed it up, and
No, I don't think it's that easy. I think someone has like someone to back it up with. Like it's COMEX. It's their coding for gold as a natural resource. So there is some kind of legitimacy behind it, but it doesn't make any sense in a riddle. But I'm entertained by the riddle still. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, still.
no, I mean, yeah, the whole riddle thing and all this and that, and I was, I remember looking at this stuff, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
But they do it all the time. And have you seen the guys the guy that has this prophecy about like God is talking to him every now and then, and I'm not sure about what his account is. I can tag the account in this chat afterwards, but he actually like does this real. You can see there's like thousands or hundreds at least hours of research behind getting to whatever he's coming to, like of conclusions about like the buyback and this. And of course, maybe he does it just because he freaks everyone else out, and he just gets an audience and he gets paid for it. Maybe that's his agenda. I don't
there
know.
was actually the way I stumbled. I actually owe my stumbling into the XRP community to this guy, because back
you
then,
know him. Like, what is he called again?
I don't know which guy you're talking about, but
He's
there.
like, he has this serious face as a profile picture, and looks very like scientific-ish. It called XRP not investigator, but something like the lamb and the lion something.
Well, see, back
yeah,
when
I have to look it up. Yeah, sorry.
When I kind of like sort of stumbled into the XRP community, it was because I was doing research on how to build I was just karma coverage, like there's a peer-to-peer coverage network. And there was only really one other person out there doing this stuff, like, and thinking about it. And they were using this thing called Ripple. And so I was like, well, you got to know the competition, right? So I was like, let me go check out this thing, Ripple. But then I talked to the guy, and that I was going to offer to partner with him or do business or something. And it wasn't, that was not going to happen. And then he did all these posts about how he was descended from gods, and Goldman Sachs was after him, and all this stuff. And it was, I mean, like, he had like manifestos, and it was like, what the like, you got to be kidding me. Like, nah. I don't know what the guy was. He probably needed to go see a doctor. Like, he was out of the stuff he was saying didn't make sense. But I have to
say. Oh, sorry.
Well, I said I have to give him a thank you, because I wouldn't have stumbled into this community otherwise. And like, I've learned a ton, and I think this is just a great thing for the world, and that it's a good thing for me to spend my time doing and trying to help improve the world. I think that's a great. So in some sense, thanks, dude. I don't want to say his name, but in another sense, like, yeah, he was not. It was, I don't know where he came up with some of the stuff. It was all like mythical, and he was tied to the pharaohs of Egypt or something. I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, yeah.
if I hear that shit from an outside perspective, I can only think of two things, and it's either um, people are mentally diseased and don't get any help. Sorry to put it up bluntly, but I'm Dutch after all.
The
So that's
thing
one.
is,
And the other is that if it isn't that, if people aren't sick and there is no support, if it isn't that, then the social glue is at some places in the United States losing its sticking power.
well, the sad thing is, from a technical perspective, he was actually doing great work. I mean, he really was. Like, the stuff he was building was I mean, he had some, there was some business model design stuff and some issues that were going to cause him legal issues, which I was trying. That's when I talked to him. I had 2 phone calls with him, and I was like, you're gonna run into some issues here, and you're gonna run into some issues here, and there was no point. But his work was good and way ahead of its time. I mean, this is 2013. Like we still don't have an actual coverage or risk sharing business model in blockchain, and that's 10 years ago. Well, almost 10 years. I mean, he was way ahead of his time, and his work was good. The software worked. I used it. I was a user of the software. I mean, he did good work, but I don't know where he came up with this other stuff. That was where it went to. I can't, Never land. Anyway, I don't know how we got off on that, but then the ironic thing was there was another guy out of New Zealand who started a company with the same name that this other guy started his company, and he wasn't. He was more legitimate, but picked the same exact name, and I was like, at first I was wondering if it was the same person, and then I talked to that guy too. It wasn't the same person. Clearly not. And I guess I lost touch with him when my first Twitter account got pulled or suspended or whatever they say. So I haven't talked to him in a few years. Anyway, wasn't trying to kill the conversation. I was just giving some color to some of the people that like the 589 stuff.
You didn't, man. I'm just listening. I'm just doing the dishes. That's not really an inspirational topic of discussion, I guess.
Well, you can come over to my place and do some dishes.
I'd love to travel if you pay for the expenses.
No, it's funny. I've met so many cool people in the community, and it's been a real pleasure. So, I mean, even some of you guys, and I don't even always know who everybody in here is, but it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something real
here.
quick. What's his name again? Kashta9, something like that, on the call right now. I gave him some cred for I'm not sure what you call it in the US if you kind of arrested a guy, the digital perspective guy or something like that, but give him at least some feedback or like get your feedback to us because this is taking off type. And I praise the fact that you gave kind of constructive criticism to these out of proportions predictions, right? Of course, something can be worth whatever in the future. Like, we can always speculate in that, but like, let's be real here. And I think the less real we are, the more hate we get, to put it that way. But we should still be dreamers, of course, and we should also understand that exponential growth is something that a human mind is not used to thinking about. So when you see something going from 0 to 1,000 in percentage, it looks like a million, right? And that in itself looks like unattainable as a number, but it definitely is with many tokens, with Shiba Inu, for fuck's sake. So we should never disregard that fact that something like that could happen. But we also have to remember the market cap of XRP at the moment, and we can also discuss if market cap is a good measure of a digital token in the first place. But I really like to see when this Kashita 9, I think you're Kashta, sorry, 9 handle is with some hemp digital hemp background picture is on your profile when you gave that feedback to Digital Perspectives in public, because I mean, these guys are many people, and myself included, has been extremely rewarded from the inspiration that I've gotten from those people. But I've also had one-to-one sessions with the Bearable Bull, right, where I have paid lots of money for very good advice, and then I've had subscriptions or similar type of situations with other people where I feel that, hey, I know more than these guys do, so what the fuck am I paying them for, right? Like, so just like kind of ground ourselves a little bit, because if we trust the tech this much, if we trust rollout and a global agenda at the level we do, why should we seem so kind of eager to promote it, right? If you have a really nice girlfriend, or if you have a really nice car, or if you have a really flashy house, you're not running around the streets talking about it that much. You know what I mean? Like
You haven't been to Miami, man.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you see the psychology play I'm trying to kind of spin up here, right? Like, you don't talk about being rich. People see that you're rich. If you have a Patek Philippe watch instead of a fake golden Rolex, people know, or the right people know, right? So I think that sometimes we are like a little bit, myself included for sure, too moon boyish to be taken seriously, right? And I posted one time a question to the Wolf of Wall Street, where I got like, I had to fucking quit my Twitter account almost, because I got like 6,000 likes and 3,000 retweets, right? So I never experienced something like that in my life before. And my phone was just going off, so I couldn't access my Twitter account. Because he said something about he hoped that it went to $10 or something like that, and blah blah blah. And then of course the community went crazy retweeting this and stuff like that. So I had to go to my dad's computer and go into the settings and turn off the notifications, because I couldn't like go into settings, because the phone was just boom 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 boom. And then after that I was thinking, like, what did this actually create? Did this create like a positive synergy for the community, like for XRP, that the Wolf of Wall Street or whoever he would be, like, if it would be more credible source, because he's known for being a little bit of a call it a trickster, right? But let's say that this was Rob Paul or something like that. I probed him as well, asking about if he was bullish about XRP, and he replied to me directly, saying he was. And he says on record that it's the best asymmetric bet in the world right now, because you have an asset that's so undervalued and like under pressure because of the lawsuit and everything, and you have the upside potential that's massive. So it's the easiest bet in the world for him. So in that regard, I deserve a lot of, cred from the community that I never ever would go out and say that I feel that I deserve at all. I just did this because I was drunk and I was having fun, right? But what I'm trying to say here is that I feel that the more moonish we are, the less moonish the rest of the world becomes, because we become more and more this guy we were talking about, Karma, this lion guy, this like crazy dude that thinks that XRP is the liquid gold of the world, and like, okay, maybe you can call it that in some sort of way and defend it like that, but at the same time, we really want this to go to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 bucks, right? We know it's not going to shoot up to 589 and overnight, or
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that riddle stuff was just, I mean, I guess if people had fun with it, they'd call it entertainment, but that was, I never took that seriously. But to take a step back in the conversation, I want to recircle whoever
Yeah.
the Triffin dilemma. The thing is,
got his hand up though as well. But
okay, I'll shut up real quick. The thing is, you don't pay the price for the Triffin dilemma until you lose that status of global reserve. Then you're stuck with all the debt, but no one wants to buy it. So that's the point in time when you being whoever the citizenship is of the country at that point in time, that's when the price is paid. Cash to go for, man.
Thank you. I can't look at my phone, so I couldn't see who kind of had brought me up. But let me just clarify a few things, man, in case some people are confused and seeing some of my posts or hearing some of the things that I'm saying. I am not against speculation, right? There's always going to be unknowns, and we're always going to anticipate or try to guess some of the unknowns, right? What I'm kind of more speaking to is that there are some unknowns, and then there are some things that are known to us just by deduction, right? And so what I am against is people using information, then misconstruing that information to push a narrative. And there's a really big difference, right? And so all I'm saying is people are free to speculate all they want. There can be a lot of positive to speculation, right? Because you can either drill down to something that probably is unlikely or something that probably is likely. And based on that information, you can make the appropriate decisions based off of that, right? But what you don't get any benefit from is from misconstruing information, right? And taking what you do know and then pushing that aside and leaning towards the, well, anything is possible kind of in this passive aggressive kind of mentality just to counter someone else's argument. Like, yeah, we could say the sun's going to burn out tomorrow, right? Anything's possible, but it's very unlikely. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is often what we do in these rooms, right? We have a lot of speculative conversations, and that's fine, but we do it based on what we do know, right? Not just off of pure speculation and then misconstruing data to fit those theories. And so that's what I'm kind of speaking out against, and I'll probably continue to do it. It's just something that means a lot to me. So that's why I do that. So if anybody's kind of
Cash, you just basically described why I don't like politics, because that's what they do. They take a couple of facts and then they misconstrue it to whatever narrative they're trying to pitch, and it's just like, it's like I don't care anymore. Like, just tell me the fact, and I'll make up my own mind.
yeah, well,
right.
In defense of that, you got rhetoric, and then you got sophists. That's how the philosophers called those. If you use those oral tricks to basically play around with the facts to get your narrative across, and they've been frowned upon for a very long time because it's not truthful. And I think it's very good that you spoke up about that. It really rings close to heart for me as well. So otherwise, how do we all get ahead?
Right. So yeah, thank you for that. Because again, like if you just take one concept like the token, the gold thing that you just mentioned, right? That's one of the things that they often, can confuse a lot of people who are not as educated about this space. And it may sound good to them. They're like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Maybe they want to attach it to gold, et cetera, right? But let's just go on the real basics of that assumption, right? If you wanted to tokenize gold, right, what makes XRP really XRP is the ledger that it lives on, right? If you put XRP on some other ledger, it loses all its attributes that we like about XRP. So the same thing applies to gold. If you wanted the attributes that XRP provides, right, and you wanted them for gold, you just run a federated sidechain and tokenize the gold. You don't have to put it onto XRP. It makes absolutely no sense. And most people are not educated enough to articulate that. And so they deceive a lot of people with their words, right? Like it makes absolute, like, would you want to think about it? It's 45 billion XRP units that are in circulation. If you tokenize gold, price set gold to some high price so that you could have this delusional theory that you're advocating, right? What you've just done is allow those circulating assets to then extract all of the value out of the peg situation that you just created. It makes absolutely no sense. So what I'm trying to do is go in and dig into the details and show, using what we actually know, how these things are so unlikely and improbable that they don't even need to be brought up. And like it's incumbent upon us who know the information to speak up. Otherwise, we can tell there'll be thousands of people who will get deceived by these other people who are misconstruing the information.
So let me get straight, because I don't think maybe this didn't pop up on my radar. Somebody's out there saying XRP is going to be tied to gold.
Absolutely, yeah. They believe. See, like, you have to go back. They have a few things that they have been believing for a very long time, and he's public about it, right? So I've known this guy. We're talking about Brad Kine's Digi Perspective, right? He admits that he was part of the 589 crew, and so it still influences him today, right? And a lot of these other conspiracies that have came up. So he takes information and says, well, see, the Bank of International Settlement says they want a tokenized asset. Well, of course they do, because they haven't been convinced that trying to settle transactions with a public asset, right, is the best way to go. And all of this is still trying to be proven out. They want to lean to something that they can control so that it may be a commodity. But at the end of the day, if you attach it to a commodity, you recreate a lot of the problems that we already are trying to get rid of. Counterparty risk, trust issues, all of those things go right back into the dynamics when you attach it to something physical like that. What makes XRP the perfect bridge currency, and there's no other solution, is that it's a native asset that is basically deriving its value from multiple jurisdictions around the world, right? So it doesn't have those counterparty risk and things that we're trying to get away from.
Huh. That's interesting. You know what's ironic about that? I haven't heard that. I know the Brad Kimes guy. I've watched some of his videos, but what's funny is over the years the Bitcoin narrative devolved from peer-to-peer payments to it was something else for a little while, then it was something else, and now it's store of value, and now it's digital gold. And I don't know what that's just kind of funny. It just sounds silly. The gold was already on XRP Ledger years ago as an issued asset. So, and there was a real company that stored the gold. It was insured, all this stuff. And you could go on the XRP Ledger and buy some issued asset that represented some gold that they actually physically had in the vault. I mean, this has been done. I don't know why you would try and equate XRP to gold. That didn't make sense. Just do the issued asset thing. It's just easier. Let XRP be XRP. It's just for the network. If you wanted digital gold, then issue digital gold. I don't know. It seems silly.
It's all marketing for popularity, Costa. That's why they do it.
Yeah, I know that, and I'm never really speaking to them specifically, but I know that there are a lot of other people who read the threads and are kind of sitting on the fence. So I've always just hoped to influence those who have sincere intentions. If you just want to believe in that kind of stuff, like you have every right to do it. I really don't care. But there's always those other people who are sincere about their intentions, who are observers, and they deserve an opportunity to hear both sides of the equation and be able to make a decision based on that, right? Just another quick thing while I have a moment to speak. I did put a post up earlier when y'all were talking about the security law being very old from the 30s, right? And sure, I mean we could upgrade a lot of things about law in general, including law as it applies to securities, right? But the point that I was trying to make is I think that it's imperative that we consider the fact that even if we rewrite the laws in application to securities, right, the efforts of others clause or prong, however you want to say it, is essential, right, to still differentiate an asset that you want to be a security and that you want to classify as a commodity or other, right? And so I think a lot of times when I hear people talk, some people, and I don't want to put this on any particular person, so don't take offense to this, but I think some people want to rely on the efforts of others because they've already identified this space as a space that they can find unicorns. So they say, man, just go out and find this new company that's going to be doing X, Y, or Z. And as soon as they're successful, if you buy early, you're going to be rich later on. Like that is the protection that the security laws were designed to protect you from. And so I'm always,
go
ahead.
You just kind of gave me a thought that I hadn't had before. So on that element of the Howey test, I mean, consider someone like myself, and I genuinely bought XRP because I want to do karma coverage, and I hopefully will one day. But I needed the XRP for the transactions because I was testing it out, right? So I made a bunch of different accounts, pretending like each account was a different user, and I sent the stuff. Then I issued a thing, and then I sent it around, and and so like I tested the system out because frankly I didn't believe that I was. Anyway, I was surprised that anyway. But like I legitimately bought it for that. Now later on, after I became more familiar with the project, I was like, hey, these are really some like killer, like how has this startup got this high of quality people? That's not easy to do. And they're getting high quality money because just because you raise money doesn't mean anything. Like who you raise the money from also matters. And so I was like, what's going on here? And so I bought some more XRP with the idea that with these quality of people, this thing might do something, right? Like go up. So in this situation, I have both purchased XRP because I wanted to test the system out and use it and build karma coverage. And I've also purchased XRP because I was like, well, look at this team of like star players. This is a good sign. And instead of making it to your point, instead of making it a yes or no question, because I couldn't honestly answer. Like if a judge asked me, did you buy XRP depending on the profit of or the what's the phrase, effort of others, I'd have to say yes and no. I mean, they both are correct answers. So there's a gray zone.
So let me quickly address that.
Have a gray zone.
You can construe it as a gray zone, but the way that the law is intended to work, right? It really doesn't matter what your intent is, right? At the end of the day, if you were buying that XRP to then build karma coverage and it became this big insurance product that many people were going to use, you and everybody that's using that, right, has this big risk factor if, and I'm saying hypothetically, because in this case, Ripple has a decentralized network, but if they ran all the nodes, right, then that puts a risk factor to you and everyone that's using your application that the SEC is trying to protect people from, because if it's relying on them, then their efforts could then determine the success of your business. And so they want that disconnect from that paradigm or dynamics from existing so that what you do can affect me. And as long as that dynamics exist, then it should be a security. And if it's not, then it should be a commodity or currency or whatever else that they want to call it. But if that person has some kind of control that he could then affect every other user, right, unilaterally, that's a security that we're trying to be protective of. And I think that part shouldn't be thrown away no matter what we rewrite, if we're going to rewrite the law.
Well, see, I think that okay, this was my original thinking. Let's say I've got a coverage request, or Karma Coverage, the service has a funded coverage request. So the thing is done what it does, and this person is owed X amount of money. Well, how are you going to get it to them? And so when I think of efforts of others, I was looking at their efforts in terms of getting connected in with the banks, because I was like, well, at some point, I got to pay. If I'm going to have to pay this person out, like, I've got to put it in their bank account, right? I mean, I guess I could mail paper checks. I looked at several options, but the transaction costs, because the financial model is a very thin. It's not. You can even run it at 100% efficiency, but you got to pay people out, right? And you got to collect money in. And so when I was thinking, if I was going to say efforts of others, I'm more thinking about, well, if I build on top of this technology or this network, and this network is connecting with all the banking networks, then boom, problem solved. Like, is that me benefiting? It's not really. I mean, it is, like, because then, like, Karma Coverage wouldn't, like, as a company, wouldn't have to go through the effort of. Think of the guy that I had on. We had on the Interledger Protocol, David guy. He can put money into a bank account in like 100 different countries in basically the same day.
Yeah, but think of it this way, to kind of shorten it, to kind of just really get the gist of what I'm saying. If, and we're going under if, because we all know that Ripple, XRP exists on a decentralized ledger today, right? What I'm saying is, if we roll back to a time, and that was like 2017, when Ripple ran all of the validators, right? What I'm saying is the SEC is tasked, and rightfully so, to protect you in the event that if those dynamics still existed, and then Ripple for some reason identified you as someone that needed to be censored, or they didn't like you, like PayPal does to some people, right? And just said, nope, that address is not allowed to make transactions. Your whole business then relies upon something that is in the control of Ripple. Those are the efforts that they're trying to protect you from, is being solely reliant on some third party in order for that activity to take place. And if they have any unilateral control in that process, or that product is relying upon that third party, then that's the protection that they're trying to protect you from.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't know. From my point, I was just looking at it as a tool to get a job that I wanted done.
Yeah. And that's really why I'm trying to spend so much time educating people in this space, because a lot of people may view it just like you viewed it, in a very elementary sense, right? But the SEC, and in the macro sense, has to take all of these things into consideration, because then you create the exact same system that we're trying to recreate without the intermediaries, and for very good reason. Like that's the whole reason this decentralized space became born, is because we understand the risk of having intermediaries. And if somebody has unilateral control over that platform or the use of the asset, right? So think of it like BNB token.
if the main driver of BNB token is to use it on the BNB exchange, then what happens to all of that value if BNB exchange folds, right? They run all the nodes on the BSC chain, all of that. Like, that is a classic security. And so what I'm saying is we have to be very careful, because we do want to make money in this space, not to subtly start advocating for things that are exactly what we don't want just because we may want to make money. And that's really just at the end of the day what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I agree, and I do agree with a lot of the things that are already in place. I think they make sense. It's just, obviously when regulators take things out of context and they go and attack to make different precedent, that's when that's obviously the situation I think we're in right now. But yeah, I agree.
Good point, Des. Like, if you're going to rewrite the law, right, what you would rewrite it to say is not that, this asset or that asset, may or may not be decentralized, or the efforts of others, or some of the other prongs, right? You would say that these regulators don't have this broad discretion, right, to have, like they try to do with mandatory minimums for federal judges, right, to just then go ahead and make the law what they want it to be. You write the law where it has clear rules that have to be obeyed by the regulators, and you take some of that discretion away. Those are improvements that we could be making, right? I think that's where I come.
Yep, completely agree. That's exactly it. We need a very, very definitive process. None of this vague terminology where it's wish-washy, right? It should get a little bit more definitive. And
well, I keep pointing this out, but like, we don't even know what the definition of decentralized is. Decentralized in what manner?
Yeah, and that's why we go, like, we would call maybe sufficiently decentralized. And so, yeah, and then we could have different classifications of the structure of, it comes down to it. Is it a network? Is it just a smart contract? There's a lot of different other questions, but there needs to be like a definitive branch of tree where you could see down the line if this is right or wrong for the regulators' eyes. And I think they stunted that growth. They've tried to stay away from that maybe a little bit so that they can play the bully in the street for a little bit.
Yeah, I would ask Karma, do we not know what decentralized is if we just keep it to the very basic notion of no one party should have unilateral access or control? Like, I think it's really just that simple, and we shouldn't complicate it.
Sorry, I missed that last point. What was it?
No, I was saying, when you say that we really don't know what decentralization is today, I would ask you, like, if we just keep it as simple as me and your often agreed upon point is, as long as there's no unilateral third party that can control the ledger, then that simply is what decentralization is, and we don't really have to complicate it beyond that.
Well, that would be my opinion. But there's other people that think the XRP ledger is centralized because Ripple owns a large inventory. There's other people.
But there's a real big difference between thinking it, right, and then drilling down to what the effects are of what they're proposing, right? So if they say, or they have this much XRP, well, having that XRP doesn't give you any control over the platform. So they can say it all day, it's still technically and factually incorrect.
Yeah. And the other aspect is, you could say, well, I guess this kind of ties into who can control processing ledger entry, but who runs the servers, like, is the network decentralized from more of a technical perspective?
Right, but the law would recognize open source, so it would say regardless of who's running the nodes, right? If I've open sourced it to where you have the option, well, if you punt on the option, then that's just your responsibility, but the network was still decentralized. You just chose not to use it in a decentralized way, the same way some people are choosing to leave their assets on exchanges in a centralized matter, and some people put them in cold wallets in the spirit of decentralization.
Well, and you bring up another good point, the open source aspect. Like, if this is open source software, it's not like Microsoft sold you, Windows products, right? Like, just there. So how do you, there's a whole number of different aspects to defining decentralization that I think we're probably lawmakers are going to have to dig into.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be one of the easier ones that they'll actually have to kind of like dig into. Their complications as the law exists today come about when you get into the other aspects that are a little more nuanced, right? Like when the SEC makes a statement that says, well, if this asset relies on a third party to fulfill its intended purpose, right? Now we have this whole vague situation to where what level does a promoter become so significant? What is its intended purpose? Who decides what its intended purpose is? Like, that's when you start to get into that real gray area shit, right? But like, if we just keep it to the basics of what decentralization is, right, as it applies to the platform and governance, I think that's the main focus that we really should be, honed in on, right? So that's kind of my perspective.
Well, they're going to have a lot of other things because you've got like BSA, AML, KYC. You got all these sanctions and the anti-terrorist finance. You get, dude. There's so many things that have to be addressed. In some sense, I'm not totally. I mean, it had basically. I just think they weren't doing their job for several years, and it's going to take reasonably. It's going to take a large amount of time, like a year or two, to figure this out. Now, it's definitely been a topic in DC for probably the last 2, 3, maybe 4 years, something like that. A growing topic, but it's like there's a lot to consider.
The only reason I say that it's not that complicated because they've already went down the logic tree and applied those same, at least the ones that they're applying, metrics to Bitcoin, right? And so you've already kind of have, some kind of rules that you're applying. The problem is back to what Dev said, is that you're not compelled to have a definitive standard. And so then we end up with all the bullshit.
I like the way you put that. But go ahead, Wolf. Thank you for putting your hand up, man.
Hey guys, thanks for having me up. Hope everyone is having a great day. I'm just wondering real quick because according to the website whenmint.day, it says that we have a maximum of 134 validators and 700 or something nodes. Will that be a total forever, or will it maybe expand later on?
Oh, hopefully vastly expands. But yeah, we would say that there is a total of altogether about 150 validators that really make up the structure of the network right now. 35 of those being the UNL nodes, and then it was like you said, 100 and I actually think it says 134. There's only 126 of them, I think, that are actually online right now. And so yeah, that makes up the structure of like all of the trusted nodes of the network so far.
Okay, thanks.
Hopefully, like I said, vastly grows over the period of time, over the next couple of years. I definitely want us to be not only one of those on the 130 list, but hopefully one on the 35 list one day.
So why does it even stand at all that it's 134?
So the way the nodes work is the consensus is met by a distributed consensus of the nodes of the network that you trust, right? And so this is why it starts in a centralized manner, because obviously you don't know or trust any other nodes that are running, right? And so as over time, when nodes begin to trust each other and put themselves on their node list, or the united, we would call it the UNL, right? This structure has built out slowly over time. And so of the trusted nodes, which make up the XRP ledger itself, right? there are 35 of them that are fully trusted with each other, that are overlapping trust. And so we would call that the UNL structure, because all of those nodes are the nodes that are trusted of the XRP ledger, right? And so as that slowly grows out, right, those other nodes of the 35 will trust other nodes. And so that accumulation has grown to the 126 as of today of that node structure. And it's very easy, like, say one of those nodes of the 126 node structure all of a sudden gets trusted by all of the UNL nodes, right? Not only one of them, but all 35. Well, then now there's 36 UNL nodes. And so that is how that structure will grow. It's really just by trust, right? If I trust that you're going to put an accurate transaction onto the XRP ledger and that we can come to consensus over validation, then you then become a member of that UNL list or the node structure of the network. Did that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much.
It was a good question. How did that, Kasha, that sounded good, right? Good explanation?
No, that's absolutely a great one. Right? That's absolutely good.
Cool. I like your feedback. Because it helps in the future. Just it's like sometimes when you explain something to one person, you try and say the same thing to another person. They maybe not understand the same terminology, and so I try and everything I say, I always have this belief that if you truly understand something, like I could talk to like I do all the time with my son, and I explain something to him, and I'm like, "Do you understand?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, great. If you can understand, anybody can understand. It's like my kind of how I believe that I should be able to describe things that I understand.
You know what I think is probably one of the most missed opportunities that we've had in this space, kind of based around some of the things that we're talking about today, is that if we understood our role in a lot of this instead of looking outward, we would have understand that there are many products, like to Karma's point, that could have been built off of the top of this ledger, where a lot of people could have made the money that they're hoping that they make, just by buying an asset early and then selling it later at a higher price. Like every day that goes by, right, is a missed opportunity. And maybe you're not a coder or something like that, so you're saying that don't apply to me, I can't build nothing. But in the spirit of what this space has really become, you don't have to be, you just have to team up, with somebody and just become a supporter, right, of that idea that you believe in, right? And let that team build out that product, because that team's going to need your support, whether it's financial or otherwise, marketing, etc. So I think we should really kind of go back to the basics, which is a lot of what Karma coverage is really about, and say, what is our role, right? What can we create? What value can we create? What product can we create, right, that's profitable and maybe just benevolent, right, to the societies that we live in? And I think that is what we should really be focusing on the most, because, there are going to be many payment companies, I suspect, once the regulation comes, that are going to build up and plug themselves in the corridors, and they're going to compete directly with Ripple. Like there's nothing to stop them from doing it, using that same XRP, doing it, right? So I think that's where we're really headed. And I want to, encourage the community, no matter how crazy you think your idea may be, always bring it forward, because developers don't know what the people need until the people speak to them about what they actually need. So yeah, come to the table.
I've got 3 massive markets worked out. Risk, that's Karma coverage. Real estate and derivatives. I'm like 98% sure I've got derivatives straight. I know one way or another there's a way to do it. I'm not sure if the way I have it currently thought is, but yeah, it's doable. Like, there you go. But I need people to, I can't build this stuff. I don't know how to, I'm not going to code it. Like, I know how the code architecture is sort of set up and how to design a service, but like I can't build it. And there's got to be, there's so many other things. There's stuff with you could, dude, there's so many markets that you can apply the technology to. And the thing is, look for liquidity risk. That's where I think that this blockchain technology, it doesn't really matter which chain you're talking about, but, or which network, but it's a tool that can address liquidity risk. And that's, you know, reduce risk, improve value. So now you
bingo. I
What's
love
that?
it, man. That's what I love. I say I love when you talk, man, because that is the heart of this all, right? Like when this automated market maker comes to the ledger, if and when, right? Like that's going to be our rock star moment, right? To then pool liquidity and then say, okay, well, let's target this particular corridor, right? Because they may be moving $30 billion a year through that corridor, right? And even if we're making a modest 3% by providing the liquidity to that corridor so that it can function, that's 3% perpetually over $30 billion that you can have indefinitely, right? And if you get enough, liquidity and target a second corridor, right now you're getting 3% off of the other corridor. So when that market maker comes live, that's going to be our rock star moment as a community to be able to then provide that liquidity for those corridors and compete.
Yeah.
When do you think the voting will come up for the XLS 30? I think. Or when do you think
So we were at 50%. We went back down the other day. We went back down to I think 40. It was like 44 or 48%. I think I saw it. But so here's the thing, right?
35 XLS 30.
XLS 30 you're talking about?
Yeah, for the AMM.
I think we're still probably a year or two out. I know Ripple hasn't announced anything yet. But a little alpha for you guys. If you check the GitHub, they've actually released a new schematic of their favorite side chains, the way that structuring it and stuff like that. If people want to go check that stuff out. But yeah, I mean, the AMM probably a year, maybe a year and a half at least out. I couldn't imagine because they're probably, we still got XLS 20, we still got hooks, we got Evernode implementation. I think there's also something digital signatures. I think it's something. So there's definitely other things that'll probably be worked on and voted on first. I don't know though. There's no way to know, right? They could release the code, put it out for a vote, and it could go like faster than XLS 20. I mean, there's really no way to know. But yeah, I still think a while personally.
Cool. And thanks so much for the tip, by the way, about GitHub. Who was it that had put it out?
Yeah, thank you for that tip. Yeah, man, that is big because I've been asking Ripple about that, in tweets and stuff like, because David did mention that it doesn't require an amendment, right, to do the federated side chains. So it's like, if it's just a code change that you can do, go ahead and do it because, it does give the community the option to say, well, even if you don't put the automated market maker on the main chain, if I need that functionality, I'll just spin it up on the side chain. And whenever you get ready or you see that it actually works, then you can move it over to the core chain. But at least gives us the ability to do it.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most excited for is probably hooks because Evernote afterwards. That's really for me. I'm excited. I know everybody likes the NFT thing. I mean, I think the ability to have the TOE, the tokenization of everything, is what we will need. But I don't know if all of that has to exist on main chain. So, I don't know. I know a lot of people. I know everybody wants it though, so that's why I want it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in the camp that wants to keep the main ledger as lean as possible and doing what it does best. And then if you need that functionality, just put it on the federated sidechain. I think a lot of people are kind of intimidated by it because it forces you to set up your own infrastructure instead of piggybacking off of what's there. Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, before sidechain was, I always envisioned, back then we called it ledger bloat, but I always envisioned karma coverage as what I guess now we call a sidechain. That's because the code's open source, so you can stand up your own network, right? And why screw up the main chain or whatever, like whatever Ripple was working on? Like, why mess them up with my traffic, basically? So yeah, I mean, I think the sidechain, it's going to allow probably so we were talking, somebody said exponential earlier. It's going to allow, because there's already hooks running on different networks. It's already there. You can start playing with it. Like, so this innovation cycle the pace of the cycle is going to increase. Instead of everybody having to innovate on the main chain, do your own thing, connect up with a federator, and there you go. And now like 1,000 people can work on 1,000 different projects all at the same time.
Exactly. That federator really makes the XRP ledger that developers type community that a lot of people are looking for in the Ethereum ecosystem and some of these other ecosystems. Like, you bring the federator and all those developers can build whatever they want, right? And then access that global pool of liquidity to use their applications. Like, I think it's kind of a setback that we didn't get that type of functionality even before today, right? I would have expected them to kind of see the value of that. But hey, better late than never.
Well, I mean, I think use the main chain for what it's worth. Like with karma coverage, what I would do is the business model would be like a liquidity provider, which basically, I guess we'll call it a federator in this case. And so, you charge a fee for providing liquidity across networks. So you got the karma coverage network where people self-custody and do whatever they do with it with their money. And then somebody wants to do a deposit or withdrawal and you got to put it in their bank account. Well, so you flip it over to the XRP ledger, stuff it in their bank account, and have a good day. Like, it seems simple to me. I mean, I'm sure I know it's not simple, but it seems, I mean, it's not like just a way of getting the job done.
And listen, if anybody in the audience has any questions, concepts, anything they'd like to bring up, please feel free to hit the request, come up and speak with us. We'll probably do go on for another like 15, 20 minutes or so, and we'll end up closing up the space. And if I could just ask if everybody could follow us at ledgerscale on Twitter and hit that bottom right bubble on the screen and give a like and a retweet to the space so that hopefully not only yourselves but other people can find this information valuable in the future. I think so far today I've really enjoyed this whole conversation today a lot.
Yeah, and if you want to help support the effort here with ledgerscale, you can donate to some of the crypto addresses there they're at the top of the ledgerscale account. And yeah, please give us a follow because we're not quite to that 1,000 mark yet. We've got to get past that to access some functionality.